श्रीमान् वेङ्कटनाथार्य कवितार्किककेसरी वेदान्ताचार्यवर्यो मे सन्निधत्तां सदा हृदि रामानुजार्यादात्रेयात् मातुलात् सकलाः कलाः अवापविंशद्यब्दे यस्तस्मै प्राज्ञाय मङ्गलम्. We are continuing to enjoy the divine bliss of Lord Vishnu's 1,000 names along with the flavour of DivyaPrabandham, which is our great fortune. In that sequence, today we are going to experience and enjoy the Slokas 47 to 50, which completes his divine names to the count of 475. Lord Vishnu's names Anirvinnaha to Samihanaha, the constellation of stars, and how he supports Simsumara Chakra is explained. Yajnaha to Satram explains as how he is into the form of fire sacrifice. Satangatihi to Suvrataha explains the Naranarayana avatar. Sumukaha to Naikakarmakrit explains the churning of the Milky Ocean. Vatsaraha to Daneshwaraha explains as how he takes up the shape of Dharma. Now, let's see some details on the unimaginable and gangetic porpoise called Simsumara Chakra. The Jyotish Chakra or the Simsumara Chakra is fully borne by Lord Narayana and he runs it. Simsumara Chakra will be in the form of gangetic porpoise, a form of Vishnu. At the tail end of the Simsumara Chakra stand Dhruva Mandala, to which sun's chariot is tied in the form of air. South of this, Saptarishi, a constellation, a cluster of luminaries, below which Archiradimarga, sun's northern movement, central movement and southern movements, and below which Dhumadimarga appears. When Jivan leaves towards moksham, the eternal salvation, he travels along the ray of sun. Veda says Sriman Narayana is seated on a lotus in the center of sun constellation. Lord Narayana is supporting Simsumara Chakra, in turn supporting Dhruva, Saptarishi constellation and Sun. Sun supports all forms of light and reigns in the world.
Extremely prodigious size.
Lord Narayana is supporting all,
known as
including
Chakra
Padala Loka to Satyaloka,
described in
and
the
the 7 waters which are all attached to Simsumara Chakra.
Vishnu Purana
Thus,
is an
Bhagavan
example
supports
for the
and
absence
runs
of
everything in the
despondency
Prapancha.
and for the ceaseless effort for redeeming the world seen in Bhagavan.
Anirvinnasthavisto bhur dharmayopo mahamakaha nakshatra nemir nakshatri Kshamaha kshama samihanaha.
Anirvinnaha, he who is never despondent. Thus, Bhagavan creates this world and grants the respective desires of the people, thinking that they would resort to him for their redemption. But the worldly minded are infatuated by the pleasures of the world and are not inclined to turn to him. Thus, his expectations are not successful. In spite of this, Bhagavan does not become dispirited or despondent, and again, with the fond hope that he will succeed in his next effort, continues his acts. Stavishtaha, he who is of an extremely prodigious size. The famous cluster of stars known as Simsumara Chakra in heavens, described in the Uttama Anuvaka of Swadhyaya Brahmana and Vishnu Purana, is an example for the absence of despondency and for the ceaseless effort for redeeming the world seen in Bhagavan. Bhuhu, the all-supporter. Because of his connection with the constellation Dhruva, he is the support of all. Dharmayopaha, he who is united with Dharma. Mahamakaha, he who is the great sacrifice. Nakshatra Nemihi, he who makes the stars move. He makes the wheel of stars go round. Therefore, he is Nakshatra Nemihi. Nakshatri, he who has the stars. There is a cluster of luminaries in the sky in the form of Simsumara. Narayana makes them move. With his place in the heart of those luminaries, he is their support. Kshamaha, he who is competent. Bhagavan bears with ease the burden of the entire universe. Kshamaha, he who is in a diminished form. At the time of the interim deluge, when the other stars have disappeared, he alone remains in an emaciated form. Samihanaha, he who makes others work in their respective pose. After the deluge, at the time of creation, he always makes all do their work in their respective pose. Yajnayijyo mahejyascha kratu satram satangatihi sarvadarshi vimuktatma sarvajño jnanamuttamam. Yajnaha, the sacrifice. Bhagavan has been delineated in the Vishnu Purana as the sacrifice, its means, and the ultimate goal. Ijyaha, he who is the object of worship. He alone is the worthy object of worship, that is done indirectly through Indra and other gods by people whose aim is to acquire kama or fruits of a lower order. Mahejyaha, he who is the object of superior worship. Kratuhu, object of sacrificial acts. The 5 Mahayajnas, the 7 Pakayajnas like Upasana, etc., the 7 Havidajnas like Agnihotra, etc., all these have been laid down in the Vedas and they have been referred to by the name Yajna mentioned above. The Kratus are the 7 Soma Samsthas comprising Agnihotra and the like. Bhagavan is worshipped by all these Kratus. Satram. Satra is a sacrificial session, especially one lasting from 13 to 100 days, conducted by many Yajamanas, that is masters. Bhagavan is called Satra because he is there always in the Satra as the object of worship. Satham Gatihi, the goal of the pious. So far, Bhagavan has been described as the goal of those who follow the pravritti dharma, having an attachment to the business and the pleasures of the world. Next, it is stated that he is also the goal for those who are wedded to nivritti dharma, that is, discontinuance of worldly acts or emotions. Sarvadarshi, the all-seer. It is his nature to preside over and witness the practice of the 2 kinds of dharma, namely pravritti dharma and nivritti dharma. Nivritatma, he whose mind is turned away from worldly desires. Sarvajnaha, the omniscient. Bhagavan is Sarvajna since he knows his self in all its aspects. Jnanamuttamam, the greatest knowledge. The great Vaishnava Dharma in all its entirety can be learnt from him.
Suvrita Sumukha Sukshma Sugosha Sukada Sukrite Manoharo Jita Krodho Veera Bahur Vidaranaha. Suvrataha, he of good vows. On this principle, all the acts of Bhagavan are for the good of others, and therefore all his observances are always auspicious. Sumukha, he with a charming face. He has a face which is unchanging, pleasing, and delightful even while reciting the mantra and other things. Sukshmaha, he is Sukshma because of his essential nature, which is extremely subtle and can be realized by deep and unsullied meditation. Sughoshaha, he who has the delightful voice of the Vedas in praise of him. He is proclaimed by the Vedic voice of the Upanishads. Sukadaha, the bliss giver. He bestows the fruit in the form of supreme bliss on those who practice good conduct and deep meditation by himself observing them. Suhrita, the good-hearted. Friendliness is that quality of a benevolent person who wishes the good even for those who have not helped him in any way, and who, being apprehensive of any evil that may befall them, always thinks, how shall I help them? Manoharaha, he who captivates the heart. He captivates their heart by his innate benevolence. Jitakrodaha, he who has overcome anger. Anger and other such bad qualities have been conquered by Bhagavan. On seeing his form, the minds of the asuras became confounded with confusion, and thereby he overcome the anger of the asuras against the gods. Veerabahu, he of mighty arms. He has 1,000 arms which vie with one another in the wonderful act of churning. Arms which are shining with effulgent bracelets and garlands. Vidaranaha, he who cuts with celestial weapons, he cut off Rahu and others.
स्वापनस्ववशो व्यापी नैकात्मा नैककर्मकृत् वत्सरो वत्सलो वत्सी रत्नगर्भो धनेश्वरः.
Swapanaha, he who lulls them to sleep. With his elegant and lovely smiles, sweet glances, and the play of his eyebrows, Bhagavan fascinates and brings under his control those that stay behind when others have gone. Swavashaha, he who is under his own control. Vyapi, the pervader. In order to rejuvenate the gods, the asuras, the Mandara mountain, Vasuki, and others at the time of churning, he pervades them with his own power. Naikatma, he with diverse forms. He is a Naikatma because he had assumed many forms at the time of churning. One as Vishnu to help the gods to churn, another as a tortoise to support the Mandara mountain, and yet another as Mohini to distribute the nectar. Naika Karmakrit, he of diverse acts. He did many acts like churning the ocean, supporting the mountain, overcoming the enemies, distributing the nectar, and others. Vatsaraha, he who lives within all beings. Vatsalaha, the affectionate. The cause for that quality is described by the name Vatsala. He is affectionate towards his children who are attached to him. He has great love and affection for those who have sought a refuge in him. Even though they have been with him for a long time, he is eager to do something for their good for some inexplicable reason. This can be compared to the young mother cows' love for their newborn calves. Vatsi, he who is possessed of such loving children. There are innumerable hosts of souls who are to be ever tended by him. Ratnagarbha, he who is in possession of abundant wealth. Dhaneshwaraha, the quick giver of wealth.
நாகமேந்து மேரு வேற்பை நாகமேந்து மண்ணினை நாகமேந்து மாகமாகம் மாகமேந்து வார்புனல் மாகமேந்து மங்குல் தீவோர் வாயுவைந்தமைந்து காத்து ஏகமேந்தி நின்ற நீர்மை நின்கணே என்றதே.
The mountain Meru on the serpent and the earth on elephant heads. Oh, the waters from the sky so high, the clouds above the world and fire, the winds that animate all life. You alone support them all, and you alone can do this feat. Thus, Tirumisayalvar astonishes as how Lord Narayana could support everything in this prapancha.
பனிக்கடலில் பள்ளிக்கோடை பழகவிட்டு ஓடி வந்தென் மனக்கடலில் வாழவல்ல மாயமணாள நம்பி தனிக்கடலே தனிச்சுடரே தனியுலகே என்னென்னு உனக்கிடமாயிருக்க என்னை உனக்கு உரித்தாக்கினையே.
O bridegroom Lord, you gave up reclining in the ocean of milk and came running to take abode in the ocean of my heart. When many excellent resorts like the grand ocean, the radiant sun, and the exalted heaven await you, you choose to come and live in me. What a wonder! And thus Periyalvar enjoys and praises, including the seat of the Lord in sun, which drives the world. Let's continue to enjoy the divine bliss and wait for further blissful experience. Jaya Jaya Sri Sudarshana, Jaya Jaya Sri Sudarshana, Jaya Jaya Sri Sudarshana.